magical place they can be. So I still attempt to create that, but of course now I know more and I can be the creator. So let's move ahead. Okay. Phew. Oh, sorry about that. This sign, which is made out of license plates from Baja California, actually welcomes people to my garden. And what I wanted to briefly describe to begin was why perennial gardens are so satisfying. I'm a frugal gardener, and so I really don't do annuals except maybe a few geraniums because I don't want to spend hundreds of dollars every year on gardening. So perennials are basically a one-time expense, except as you keep adding things every year. And they actually create a very stable, diverse ecosystem that's beneficial to everybody who lives in it, both plants and animals. They're easy to care for. Once planted, they require only occasional weeding and dividing those who are so happy that they want to take over the garden. I don't fertilize my gardens really at all, maybe my roses a little bit. I do add wood chips every 2 or 3 years as a mulch just to enhance the soil. Perennials are generally more drought tolerant, and I plant my garden thick enough that you don't even see dirt. So just the coverage of plants creates an environment that is very, very drought tolerant. And perennials allow you to create a 4-season garden. They include herbs to flavor food and teas, and they have medicinal uses, although I haven't done much of the latter. But I do make peppermint tea from my own peppermint, and I just pick the leaves and throw them in a cup with hot water. Perennials are available in exquisite variety for every soil, light, temperature, and moisture condition. And I'll talk about that as we see the slides. And finally, you can share your divided perennials with your friends, and they, of course, with you. So I have plants from the women that I call the grand dames of Orcas gardening. Some of them have passed, but I still have them in my gardens. And so every time I look at a shared plant, I think of the person that I got it from, and I'll also say hello to them. For example, I have one of Hazel O'Brien's tree peonies that she started with from seed. And so I always say hello, Hazel, when I admire that plant and when it blooms. So sharing is good. Okay, here is what my garden looks like in late May, early June. And it was stunning with roses and lupin and columbine, and it looks like I've got camassia there, the perennial geraniums, and it looks like it would take a lot of work, but it really doesn't. It more takes a lot of love. And that's easier to manufacture. But December, the garden looks like this. These are apple trees in the background, and the gardens that don't have plants are where I do my vegetables. But I garden 12 months a year because I just like being outside. And I love being outside in the cold. I have good clothes, long underwear, Carhartt overalls, good gloves. So I don't really feel cold once I'm working. And I love that feeling of the cold on my cheeks. And things are so much more accessible because they're not crowded with vegetation. So if you haven't tried 12 months a year gardening and you think you might like it, do just make sure you have good clothes. And I can't overstate how helpful overalls are, because you can store tools. It keeps your core warm. When you bend over, your back doesn't get exposed, um, and you don't have to worry about your pants falling off, which I do because I have no waist anymore. Um, and this is a witch hazel. There again, in memory of Hazel O'Brien, and it's blooming in January, along with the hellebores that you probably have in many of your gardens. So a wonderful small perennial shrub. The garden in February is starting to wake up. As you can see, my garden in winter looks mostly like dirt. I haven't planted a lot of evergreen shrubs, because I love flowers so much that I don't want to give that room to evergreen shrubs, but others can create gardens that have green in them year round. Mine is mostly dirt and wood chips in the winter. But at the bottom are geraniums coming along. You can see iris starting to bloom. The honeysuckle starts early on the arbor as well. So every day is exciting to see who's new. But whoops, this is February of 2021, and we got about a foot of snow, if you'll remember. So, but everybody survives that. I think you had snow in February this year too. I wasn't here. I was in Baja California to miss that, but the garden doesn't mind. It's insulation. And first up, of course, are the galanthus, the snowdrops, and crocus. And I do mostly species bulbs, species crocus, species tulips, because they're generally smaller and I think they look more natural. We'll see species tulips in a bit. The other thing I like about the species varieties rather than the hybrid is that they naturalize very easily. So, this may have been one or two bulbs in the beginning, and it's naturalizing to look very, very native in the garden. I also built a greenhouse for starting veggies and flowers, particularly sunflowers. But a year and a half ago, I acquired a partner, and now my greenhouse looks like this. I gave it to him for a wood shop because we bought a wooden boat on our very first in-person date. So when I'm not in the garden, we're working on boats. So we have a wood shop instead of a greenhouse now. So I'm going to have to go back to just direct seeding in the vegetable gardens. So it was fun while it lasted, but less work to not be tending all the greenhouse plants. So you have to pay attention to Linda Gilkinson in May, because she'll be telling you more about starting things and even gardening in winter. Okay, so February and early March is a good time to be starting seeds if you do have a place to do that, and also interior windows. And it's a time to gather the first bouquets. These are February gold daffodils, which are one of the first blooming, and of course red currant that I got through the Master Gardeners native plant sales, and there may be a hellebore in there as well. Again, February gold, just a wonderful naturalizing daffodil. And I order mine from Van Eegelen. I'm a little disappointed that I don't usually get them till November. I'd rather be planting them earlier, but I've had pretty good success with Van Eaglen. Others may have different preferred suppliers. And my garden is rustic. The style of my home is rustic. The best compliment I think I ever got is somebody said, "Oh, this farmhouse must have been here for 100 years." Well, no, it's only 14 years old, but has a look of being older. So I've been collecting garden art that I just call rusty stuff, and these are a couple of probably big old tractor truck springs, and so they're the first spring in spring, a visual pun. I have cut back on the amount of iris in my garden because they are thuggish, but they're wonderful early structure, and their verticals are good. These are the very just common iris or flag that you see. I've kept my more hybrid species iris because they don't spread to the degree that the old-fashioned iris. And by the way, just a couple doors down from me at Orcas Rental and Saw, Steve Pearson, the owner, is redoing the front garden there in front of Rock Island. And there's tons of those iris that anybody can take. I think he did something on an Orcas buy-sell trade on that. But you can just help yourself if you love old-fashioned iris and you have the space or are willing to divide them when they need that. But just go to Orcas Rental and Saw and say, "I'm going to take some of your iris." He'll be thrilled. Here's our boat, Tusitala, just a little side light. When I'm not working on the garden, we're working on this. And she's been around the world, which I have not. And I don't plan to do that on a sailboat. So Hellebore are wonderful winter plants, blooming in, even starting to bud and bloom in December and January. And this is a shade garden here in which I also have Brunera, which looks like the forget-me-not, but is a perennial plant. Lily of the Valley, as you're looking from bottom to top. So there's Hellebore, Brunera, Lily of the Valley, native, bleeding hearts, rhododendron. Also have some Fritillaria meleagris, the snake's head lilies, and ferns, and all those folks are happy in almost full shade. A little bit of grass too, as well. And a little more of the rusty stuff, garden art, crab pot buoys that I found on the beach or had been given to me, tractor parts, an old bike rusting. It's fun to collect that. It doesn't work for every style of garden, certainly not for a more formal setting, but fun for scroungers like me. A little more of that, and much of it has come from the exchange. And tractor seats, I think, have a wonderful sculptural quality. I've got about 4 or 5. I can't remember where I got them all, but here and there. And once people know that you collect rusty stuff, they'll give you their old rusty stuff as well. Again, more tractor seats, an old vise, galvanized buckets, tubs, even a cast iron pan there on the lower right. just really fun, eclectic garden art that is almost no cost. And here to the left of the fence, I found by the side of the road a roll of I think pig wire fencing. I thought, well, that'd be kind of cool. And it's got a vintage hubcap on top of it. Like I say, not for everyone, but it's fun for me. So you can see in April, things are just bursting out of the ground. They've been dormant, asleep all winter, but the roots are having a party down there and can't wait for warmth and light. And one of the really lovely plants, I think, that is both sculptural and adds height to a garden is the cardoon, which is a close relative to the artichoke and survives, for example, it survived our week-long cold weather at Christmas and comes back every year. I have two varieties there. One, the blue-gray leaf in the center, and then to the left, a more fern-like cardoon. And I love these plants because they get 6-8 feet tall with that beautiful thistle flower that artichoke would have if you actually let it flower. And to the left of the cardoon, the shrub there is a Weigelia, which is very much a granny garden plant and one of the early blooming shrubs. And iris, you can see just and Shasta daisies, which are wonderful blooming in July, but do want to take over your garden. So the little red tulips here is, excuse me, the little red tulips are species tulips, and they naturalize and come back every year. And I love the pop of the red against the green of all the foliage that's coming up in April. Mine are just budding now, so I expect them to be blooming right around the 1st of May. And in the background, the yellow flowers are flowers from kale that I had left in the garden from the year before, and it just makes beautiful, huge sprays of bloom. So if you don't eat all your kale, let it flower, and you'll have some beautiful spring flower with that, the yellow. The garden in early May is really filling out. Dylan Thomas calls it the green fuse, the poet Dylan Thomas, and I agree. Things just explode out of the ground, as you're probably noticing in your gardens now. The little blue flower is the annual forget-me-not, and that you can just toss out seed in your garden. After that, you'll never have to do another thing because it will self-seed every year in different arrangements and spread through your garden. And it's lovely, that lacy blue against the green foliage and the red tulips. Same with the Love in a Mist annual, will self-seed all over the place as well. So when I had my greenhouse and I got to start plants in the greenhouse, I would plant out my broccoli, because that's one of my favorite vegetables, and homegrown broccoli tastes so much better than store broccoli that it's almost not comparable. And then rhubarb there at the far end of the lower garden terrace, chives growing in the rocks. Rhubarb's just a wonderful perennial plant. And on the top, you can see some iris in the background. And I built these terraces with just Orcas Island rock, I actually went to the quarry and got to pick the rock myself, and it was fun weighing in and weighing out on the scales at the quarry. I felt like, you know, I actually knew something when I learned the how to do that machine. And this is the red Gravenstein apple, which is one of my earliest to bloom. And it's spectacular to just to both look at and smell, and the bees get excited. And the red Gravenstein is a species actually created on Orcas, I believe, out in the Olga area. So wonderful apple, historical heritage apple, easy to grow and exquisite in bloom. And my favorite Narcissus of all is the Poeticus, for just its delicacy and that wonderful yellow center with the white petals. Very easy to grow and naturalized, and a late blooming daffodil as well. It blooms in May, which is really lovely. And I think that may be Camassia in the background, a native Washingtonian plant. And if not, it's bluebells, but I think it's Camassia. I like using found materials. I think a garden looks more settled in place when you use the materials that you dig up. And since my part of the island received a lot of great glacial till at the end of the last ice age, 12,000 years ago, I've got a lot of round rocks. So this is a little path just created with round rocks. And I used them also to edge the beds. I don't have big enough rocks that I could create my terraces, but some of you may, especially those in mountainous areas like Buck Mountain, where it's all rock. This is a poppy, I think similar to the Welsh poppy, except it's orange, that I actually bought in a pot at Lorna's at Driftwood Nursery, and it has naturalized near my entrance. And both the flowers and the leaves are marvelous because they just dance in the wind. And the little purple flower there in the front, you can just see a few, are Columbine. And Columbine not only self-seed all over the garden, but they hybridize. I've got so many varieties of Columbines, most that I've never seen, just from them playing around with each other in my garden. So lovely spring arrangement of poppies and Columbine. And this, I didn't do anything here but plant one plant, and then they did their own thing. In between gardening, I'm sanding. So this doesn't have anything to do with gardening, but I'm just showing that you can be interested in more than one thing and still somehow find time. Again, the Weigelia in bloom, just the delicacy of that pink and that pale gray-green leaf. Not an expensive shrub. I think I got one the other day. I've increased my perennials for $15 at Lorna's. And the one I bought had a dark, almost black, kind of wine colored leaf that I think will be offset this really nicely. Lots of species of Weigelia, and it's very much a granny plant. Here's a white Columbine that I did not plant. I don't know where it came from, but I think it's exquisite. So it could have hybridized, the seed could have blown in, but what fun to find these new things in your garden. I'm a big, huge fan of line drying clothes. And in a rustic setting, such as I have created here, I think the clothes on the line make it even more wonderful. And of course, the smell of sheets that have dried on the line is one of the best perfumes in the world. And you're saving money. Your clothes are sanitized by the sun, and you're using less energy. So throw up a clothesline. And there's also a wonderful, what I think, ritual movement, the bending to the basket, the lifting your clothes and pinning them on the line. And then at the end of the day, the reverse of folding them and placing them in your basket are just lovely, healthy rituals. So if you have a spot, and mine are just 2 trees, I ran a line between a couple trees, um, just love summer for line drying clothes. Many of my roses are David Austin shrub roses. They are abundantly flowering, scented, and most of them absolutely thrive. This is Munstead wood, which you can see is a cabbage type rose, and it just has the deepest, most incredible scent, and is so heavy with bloom that the that it bends to the ground. And underneath it are perennial geraniums. I think that's the Johnson's blue. So that kind of purpley blue and the purpley red are really lovely together. But this is a great rose, perhaps my favorite. Elderberry, elderflowers, just amazing color and form, those lacy leaves, those beautiful pink flowers that you can also put in cordials. Just be careful with elderberry. It can get large. Of course, you can prune it. So give it room. This is in a pretty shaded location. Definitely partial shade. And it's doing fine. And the vertical green leaves underneath it are Carcosmia, which is a summer flowering kind of little corm type plant that can also be thuggish in your garden. So a good one to give away. It's beautiful. We'll see them later. This is the common iris, oriental poppy, and a David Austin variety, Mary Rose, the pink flower on the left, about 3/4 of the way up. And iris, poppies, roses, columbines, lupin all bloom at the same time, early June, late May, early June, and put on quite a show. I've always wished the garden tour was just a few weeks earlier. Again, you see lupin in the center, columbine, and then oriental poppies, Weigelia in the background, and rose on the right, but I don't see it blooming. That might be the Pat Austin. So you see my arranging is very naturalistic. I just pop things where the light and soil is good for them. And if I don't like the way they look there, or I think they would do better someplace else, I just move them. I treat a garden very much like interior design, and I'm constantly moving things, finding a place where I like it better. But in the meantime, I like to see what they do, what they want to do in terms of spreading and self-seeding, so you get that naturalistic effect. The kind of garden that I personally don't care for, because I don't think it looks natural, is when everything is evenly spaced and there's bark in between. That's not the way nature does it. And I like to mimic nature as much as possible. And then by planting your plants in closer together, it eliminates weeding because, well, it doesn't eliminate all weeding, but you don't have to worry so much because the weeds have no light to seed. These are, gosh, I'm having a little brain blank here. Oh, alliums. Alliums and peonies, excuse me. So the white flowers are alliums, which are in the onion family, and you plant them in fall, and they are marvelous accent plants in the garden. And again, naturalize. These are, I can't remember which species of allium this is, but I got it from Van England, and it's very, very easy to care for. No animals love to eat onions except maybe dogs in your beef stew. But and the alliums bloom at the same time as the peonies. And I don't think I purchased any peonies because they're very, very easy to dig up and divide and share. I have peonies from people all over the garden. I mean, all over the island. And I think these may have come from Emily Reed, who has since passed. But a fun plant to share, and deers don't love them, nor do they like allium. Another allium that I'm crazy about that self-seeds is this Christophe, which makes a kind of starburst, a 4th of July firework of bloom that looks lovely with roses, geraniums, and again, is a marvelous accent plant. And mine have naturalized all over my garden. The rose, yellow rose there is Pat Austin that, oh gosh, maybe 12 years ago, Costco actually had David Austin roses, 2 for $20. So you can bet I grabbed some of those. I've not seen them at Costco since, which is too bad because they're more expensive now. So here is one of these Spanish lavenders. I call them the rabbit ear lavenders. And underneath the white flower is the Love in a Mist, which self-seeds. Just throw out the seed once and you'll have it forever, traveling here and there. To the left of the lavender, which is the pinky flower, left and below is Alcamilla, lady's mantle, which is a lovely accent plant. As many of you know, it has a kind of yellow, chromy, yellow-green bloom, and it's wonderful in bouquets, a wonderful accent plant in the garden. Also self-seeds, you only need to buy it once. And I deadhead it as soon as those blooms are done because it could take over a garden, but again, just a wonderful perennial plant. Here again with Alcamilla, iris, the white flowers, center left, peony, rose, and you can really see the Alcamilla, the lady's mantle in bloom, that kind of chrome yellow at the bottom. And these plants are either self-seeded or given to me, or I buy them in 4-inch pots and give them a few years and you've got a shrub. So low-cost gardening. Golden hops on the left of the arbor here, and on the right, honeysuckle. In the very background, the purple leaf is Cotinus, the smoke bush, which is against the house. One of my favorite small trees. It's, and the color, the fall color for the Cotinus is amazing. Just the most gorgeous, deep, kind of brick red. And again, an easy to grow, totally drought tolerant shrub. So if you don't have smokebush, Latin name Cotinus, put it on your list. And also fairly inexpensive to buy, like you can even get them in gallon pots and quick growing. These days I favor yellow and red roses. The one here on the right, I can't remember its name. It's something like Sunburst or whatever. I wish I remembered. I am horrible at keeping records for my gardens. I depend on my memory, but obviously it's failed on the name of this rose. When I look at how I want to spend my time, do I want to spend it inside in front of a computer journaling my garden, or do I want to be outside playing in it? And I choose the latter. But I deeply respect and admire those of you who do keep detailed and accurate garden records. I just can't do it, or don't want to do it. I could do it. And then again, the Pat Austin, a David Austin rose named after his wife. And David Austin sadly died a year or two ago, but he was in his 90s, so he had a good run. And then in the background, there's a deep red rose, a climbing rose called Altissimo, which is a fairly well-known rose, and I also recommend that. And here's my little herb garden, and I've also got dianthus there, and my Mayday marigolds from the Christian school. So you can see this is an oddball collection of pots, but in a rustic style garden, very fun. This is a iris that somebody gave me. I call it root beer because of the colors of the buds, but I have no idea what it is. And then a horse watering tub for a kind of water garden. And I've got planted, gosh, I can't remember, cattail, a smaller variety cattail that I actually got at Bullock's. And it fits in a small tub like that. And then here is a garden in mid-June, late June, with the Alaska daisies, sweet peas, Alcamilla, and geraniums. Let's see, what else is there? Oh, euphorbia in the foreground. Lots of fun things happening. Poppies, the Papaver somniferum, which that's a variety of the Opium poppy, but you can, and also is the same as the poppy seed poppy. The Papaver somniferum. Somniferum means sleep. And those are wonderful to self-seed in the garden. Verbascum, self-seeded. I have no idea where it came from, but it's a wonderful plant. And digitalis, again, the foxglove self-seeding. Onions I planted. Coreopsis, I think this is Coreopsis Zagreb, which Lorna usually has each summer. So the mixing of vegetables and flowers in the same bed or nearby, I think creates a lovely conversation between food and the fun of flower gardens. The Scabiosa is the tall white flower here on the center. It was given to me, the Coreopsis again, the yellow flower on the further right is the Zagreb variety, and then Alaska daisies. I think it's Leucothium or something like that is the Latin name on the left. But joyful abundance, and sweet peas. I just can't imagine a garden without them. And they're really easy to start from seed. I just planted mine out this morning. I started them between two towels on a dinner plate, and I just kept the towels wet until they sprouted, just barely sprouted, and then just tucked them in this morning. Here's the Carcosmia, again, a plant that was given to me. I can't remember which species this is, but this is right at the 4th of July. There's a very large leafed perennial sage in the foreground that I actually carried home from a plant carried home on an airplane from California that I bought at the Luther Burbank garden in Santa Rosa. So you can see its large leaves bottom right, and it's really fabulous with that Trichosmia. And the tall in the back, just in front of the fir tree, is the cardoon. And you can see the thistle flowers. I think they're blooming in that picture. Again, daisies, Crocosmia, and sage. And I love that it's red, white, and blue at this, right at the 4th of July. Didn't plan that, but came out nicely. Another view here of Allium, Coreopsis, daisies, and sweet peas. And the pinky purple balls in the front and towards the background are another species of allium, and these self-seed as well. And here's a little break from gardening out on Tusitala, sailing in West Sound. We all need breaks. And then the Echinops, which is a kind of in the thistle family as well. Penstemon, a kind of Colorado Rocky Mountain wildflower, but very drought tolerant. Pretty is the pink at the bottom. And a Helianthus, I have no idea what kind, but it came from Emily Reed's garden, and it spreads easily, too easily. So I have to really watch that. But wonderful plants in July, plus a collection of license plates that I've gathered here and there. Blackberries are a problem, but I whack away enough that they're not in my gardens and then eat the rest, with a few blueberries that the birds didn't get. I have like 11 blueberry plants, but they're not caged, so it's a little bit of a contest between me and the birds. And here, late summer garden is the Japanese anemone, another wonderful spreader. But isn't that just the most beautiful flower? Almost kind of waxy petal. Also comes in white, is gorgeous in white. I just happen to have the pink. And I don't think I bought that. I think I got it from someone else. Here the Catinus, the smoke bush is just beginning to turn. The garden is getting hazier in terms of both color and atmosphere in late summer. And I let my garden be messier in late summer because I kind of like that glorious decay. I hope for myself that I can decay that gloriously as well. I have to be coached by a garden. Asters. Sadie Bailey, a great gardener on the island, gave me this one. I don't know the species, but they last all the way through November. and just such a, and on the very right here, I have a miniature lilac in a tub, and that pretty maroon leaf of that with the purple of the aster, I think it's just a knockout combination. So if there's anything that I would hope to teach from my garden is just play around and relax and work with nature instead of trying to control it. Here's that disheveling autumn garden, the cardoons there with the thistle heads kind of going to seed, and the peonies, many of the peonies have nice leaf color. In the front, another aster, a wild aster that I dug up and brought home. That's really a thug, but it's magnificent. So I'm just keeping my eye on it. And Rudbeckia, Japanese anemone, and asters in this. So the leaf in front is the leaf of the Japanese anemone, which is pretty, kind of a maple shaped leaf. And I always plant sunflowers along with sweet peas. I couldn't live without them. And they last wonderfully long, as many of you probably know, as cut flowers. So I can enjoy them on the table as well. And here is a willow that I got from Bullock's that has a wonderful yellow leaf, and you can see the garden turning its fall colors and looking a little raggedy, but I think, oh, what a gorgeous mess. I love the fall garden because I love those colors, and the leaf fall from the willow. In spring, it would be, if I had cherries, it would be similar to the cherry blossom fall, but the willow leaves are just so pretty on the lawn and are an excuse not to mow. And again, you know, tidiness is not what autumn is about. The wonderful color of the apples in the orchard. And you can see the woods behind. So my property is on the back end is on the east sound swale. So I get all the color from the trees there. And I did plant some lovely birches that I got from the Master Gardener's native plant sale. And those are doing well on the back of my property where it's wet. The Cotinus, again, marvelous reds and the lacy quality of the leaf. The on the fence, on the left, you've got the honeysuckle, on the right, the golden hops. Again, beautiful leaf fall. So don't discount the fall garden. Now burnished with the gold of the hops, but every bit as pretty as spring. I get, because I've got fir trees around me, I get volunteer firs, and I usually let them grow to about 3, maybe 4 feet, and then they come inside as a Charlie Brown Christmas tree. And you know, the foliage is spare, but if you put a lot of decorations, it doesn't look too bad. And other winter warriors, the grapevines, this is some rusty pipe or something I found, and wrapped it with grapevines and a couple of wreaths and some holly and probably some hawthorn berries up at the top, and makes an unusual rusty stuff Christmas wreath. And that's the last slide. This is a view of Indian Island and looking down East Sound. And I will say peace on earth on this Christmas Day photo, goodwill to all, and thanks for letting me share a year in my garden. That was fun. So I would welcome any questions people have.
Great, thank you. Lana, do you want to say anything before I go into questions?
No, I'll say something afterwards, after you, and before Dixie and Nita.
Okay, great. So we have a number of questions, Margaret. The first of which was about deer protection. How much of your garden is protected from deer? And do you have deer fence, or are the plants themselves deer resistant?
Well, I have garden both inside and outside of a fence, a deer fence. But I find, because I'm in East Sound, I don't have a huge deer problem. I have a small number of deers that actually visit. Alliums, peonies, great plants, euphorbia, any herbs, lavender, rosemary, all of those are pretty, deer resistant. But the first thing I did when I started my garden, I actually had enough cash to do a deer fence, and I put in a deer fence because I love roses, and so do deer. So I I have both. Um, and of course daffodils, and I have the grape hyacinth, the muscari. Deers don't eat those, so there's a lot you can do without a fence. But I do garden in the fence too.
Thank you. And how wide are your terraces, and how do you access them?
They're about 5 feet wide, and they're not high. The bottom one is only like about a foot above ground level, so I just jump in them. My property was sloping there, and I wanted to make a transition between the gardens that are close to the house, which are chiefly flowers, um, to the orchard. So I thought terraces would be an attractive way to do that.
And how do you keep your walkways free of growth?
Oh, there's weeding. So I like gravel walkways, and I just got, I think it's the smaller gravel size, 5/8 and below. You do have to weed them, but there are wonderful plants that like to seed in the gravel, like the nigella, the love in the mist, seeds there. So I just let that happen. And the California poppy, who else likes to seed in the gravel? Alcamilla does too, but I pull a lot of that out. That's the lady's mantle. Um, so I just take care to weed them, but I like the gravel because it's crunchy, and I just like the sound of that crunch.
Nice. There was a question about leach fields and do you grow anything on it? And then there was a response about that saying to see the Clemson University Extension landscaping over a leach field resource. So if anyone wants to look at the chat window, you can see that suggestion from Anthony. And do you have anything on your leach field, or if you have one?
So is the leach field like for septic?
Septic, right.
Oh, so I'm on the East Sound sewer, so I don't.
There you go. The next question, in your opinion, Margaret, when is the best time to move perennials for a successful and healthy transplant?
I move things year round. Fall is probably the best time because they're going into dormancy, but I move things any time of year that it strikes me. If you do it in warmer weather, you've got to water, 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 water. But right now in spring is fine as well. And I really encourage you to just move stuff. Think of plants like furniture. And if you don't like what it looks like in a certain place, or it's not doing well, move it.
Nice. What time of year do you direct seed flowers?
Well, I don't anymore because the the flowers that I have seed themselves, and that's the Love and a Mist, the California Poppy, the what else was I describing? Oh, the Myosotis, the Forget-Me-Not. But when things warm up in May, when the soil temp is getting, up to 60 or so, that's a good time to seed. But many of the seeds, like lupin, which you can grow from seed, needs to be, it needs the cold and it needs the roughness. So you can seed some flowers in fall, and then they'll poppies, all the Papavia or somniferum, all those last through the year. So it really doesn't matter when you seed them, because they don't mind the winter cold.
And the last question I have from the chat is, do you ever grow rose campion, and can I direct sow them now?
Yes, rose campion easily grows from seed, and yes, I do have them. I didn't mention them or show them a picture, but those are very much what I call a granny garden plant, and I love them. And easy. I love the kind of plants that you plant, or seeds that you plant once and then they just do the rest of the work.
Thank you. That's the last of the questions from the chat window, Lena.
Margaret, thank you so much. I think I'm so glad that we're recording this, because there are things I want to go back and see again. But I think the thing I'm going to take away is your very recent comment to treat plants like furniture. I love that phrase. Just move them around and have them where you want them. But it's beautiful, and I thank you for taking time to share it with us. I really appreciate what you did and shared with us. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay. Dixie, or you have comments?
Just a big thank you to Margaret. We are having our May 7th plant sale, and this is a huge encouragement for people to share their perennials. Your garden is definitely a sharing garden, so it will inspire all of us to get out there and separate things and share things. So thank you very kindly, and we'll see everybody next month.
Great. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Margaret, especially. What a treat it was to walk through your garden with you. And I have a feeling some of us might be hitting you up on a one-on-one basis for some ideas. I especially want to do more about shade gardens. Anyway, thank you so much. And also, don't forget, next month on May 18th, our speaker will be Linda Gilkison. She's going to be talking about, her title is Next Winter's Harvest Starts Now. So she's going to be talking to us about what we can start in our gardens in the summertime to have some winter harvest. So get out there, get your hands in the soil, and enjoy the spring, and we'll see you next month. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Margaret.